Hello and thank you for joining us. You're watching News Across Nigeria Now. I'm Olumide Macaulay. On today's edition, oil and gas workers on strike. Victim Support Fund begins educational support program in Adamawa State. And Air Force trains cadets on counter-terrorism. We begin with a story that will affect all the states in the 36 in the Federation, the 36 states in the Federation, and that has to do with the strike action of the Petroleum and Gas Senior Staff Association, Pengassan, and the National Union of Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, who've embarked on a nationwide strike. Now, the two unions resolved to shut down all NNPC facilities in the country after a meeting that went into the wee hours of today. The NUPENG president, Mr. Igwe Achese, spoke to our correspondent, Chamberlain Uso, and he said their grouse is with the unbundling of the NNPC by the federal government.
The in-house union of NUPENG and Pengassan NNPC group had a meeting yesterday over the issues of the unbundling of the NNPC, which wasn't transparent, which doesn't also involve stakeholders to have also looked at what is actually the policy guidelines that want to be introduced by the Honorable Minister. However, like you are all aware, we've gotten this information right from the moment he was made a GMD of NNPC, where the issues of subsidies crisis came up, and we discovered where major marketers were solely involved alone in the subsidy scheme that resulted into the last fuel scarcity. And as such, we also advised the Honorable Minister in order to avoid industrial crisis, and that whatever reforms must be transparent, whatever reform must be an open issue where all stakeholders, inclusive the National Assembly, civil societies, leadership of the unions, must be involved in whatever transformation you're bringing on board in order to avoid a situation where what we experienced in the last dispensation. One of the decisions from my information is that they shut down all operations of NNPC, and that the Honorable Minister should reverse the decision.
Wouldn't this worsen the fuel situation?
I wouldn't want to say that wouldn't give any rise to that, because if depots are shutting down, refineries that are trying to pick up productions are also shutting down, for sure it will definitely create the crisis we're looking at now.
And one of those refineries that are shutting down, he just mentioned, happens to be in the northwestern part of the country, in Kaduna, where workers have stopped working at the Kaduna Refinery over the unbundling of the NNPC. Our correspondent in Kaduna State says they locked up the refinery gate. They prevented workers in management level and others from entering the refinery. They say they want the government to reverse the decision. Now, prior to the strike action, the Minister of State for Petroleum, Dr. Ibe Kachukwu, had tried to explain what that unbundling actually meant. It is restructuring, he says, which will not create new companies, but it will break the corporation into functional units, that is, specific areas of function. He also went on to enlighten that the restructuring will not lead to any form of retrenchment. Take a listen.
We will not split an NPC into 30 companies, no. There are subsidiaries that are already there. And the major divisional groups, which are the 4 that I gave you, and the only ones that are not amongst those 4, of course, finance, which is a divisional entity, and of course you have services, so that brings them to about 6 or 7. But 4 or 5 out of those really are business focused. The others provide services. Finance provides services, services provide services. but 5 are focused on, upstream is focused on his business, downstream is focused on his business, refining is focused on his business, gas and power is focused on his business, ventures is focused on his business. So you understand what I'm saying? Out of the 7, you have 5 that are business geared. Beneath these 5 that are business geared, what we've tried to do is obviously recognize companies that were there, vary them in some way or the other. For example, if you look at PPMC, what we've done is to take the pipeline and depots and put them into a different company so that somebody focuses strictly on that. While PPMC itself deals with marketing, get your products, distribute, you're more nimble, you're faster. Right now they worry about pipeline, they worry about depot, they worry about distribution, so our turnaround time when we have prices is very few. So it's a 5 business-focused bundling, like you would say, but they all report out into the GMD. NNPC is still a whole. It is not different companies. It is simply divisional breakups. And under those divisional breakups, you have subsidiary companies that are now focused on business. Now, those are going to be run by managing directors. The business breakups are going to be run by your former GEDs that are being called chief operating officers or chief executive officers. And the whole idea is to focus everybody to the fact that it is no longer an administrative role. It is no longer a coordination role. This is a business-focused role. You have to deliver numbers.
Dr. Ibe Kachuku, Minister of State for Petroleum. Let's bring you news from other areas now. The Victims Support Fund has launched its educational support program targeting school children affected by the insurgency in Adamawa State. The State Commissioner for Education, Professor Kaletapa Farota, says the initiative will facilitate learning and provide access to education for school-aged children that were affected by the activities of Boko Haram.
This is how communities in Mubi have been in the last few months. Deserted and empty. Then, the Nigerian army and other multinational forces came and liberated the towns. Now the story is different. About 7,000 primary school children from across the 3 local government areas in Mubi are back to school. At Mubi 2 Primary School, pupils are seen sitting on the floor without chairs and tables as a federal government-led Victim Support Fund committee visits the schools to distribute materials.
Education is critical to dealing with the root causes of the insurgency we are managing today. So much of the crisis we are facing is because of some of the low level of education and the manipulation of our ignorance by certain categories of people.
According to the Executive Director, Victim Support Fund, Professor Sunday Ochoche, the agency identified education as a key area for intervention.
Critical to our recovery will be addressing the issue of education. And that is why Victim Support Fund is here today with critical support for education of our children. If we do not educate our children today, we are simply building the next Boko Haram agents for the next few years to come.
The Adamawa State Commissioner for Education appreciates the initiative and promises more support for the victims.
By the reason of the insurgency that took place some time ago, our structures have been destroyed and a lot of the children are traumatized. And if there is anything we would do to expect these children to perform better, and especially to encourage them to go back to school, is to see to it that structures are raised and learning materials like their books, their biros, their papers are given to them so that they will have the confidence to go back to school.
The Mubi communities want the federal and state government to come to their aid and provide furniture for their schools, just as they continue to provide textbooks and bags for the children.
You're watching news across Nigeria. Coming up next, we'll stay with the terrorism theme, that is insurgency in the northeastern part of the country, and the Nigerian Air Force commences training of cadets on counter-terrorism maneuvers.